Thank you guys for coming. So day 2, you're making it through. I'm excited for the Super Bowl party. That should be fun. So it's been great. I haven't obviously gotten a chance to meet every one of you, but for the people I have met, thank you for being here. I'm really impressed with the work that you all are doing. It's definitely an honor to be able to talk at this conference, but I'm learning a lot more from you guys. So thanks, guys, for the work that you're doing and for spending your weekend here in Austin. So just to kind of preface this, I know this can be, it's one of our 12 ingredients for building a no-kill community. I know this is a really touchy subject for a lot of people. I promise I'm not going to Sarah McLachlan. This is going to be a really positive presentation. Every single dog that you see here is a dog that we've saved, that's alive and doing well. So yeah, I want to make this positive because that's how you have to be to get through this work, right? So yeah, again, my name's Clare Callison. I work for Maddie's Life Saving Academy at Austin Pets Alive, and I'm the Canine Life Saving Advisor. So, and I apologize if you've come to my transport presentation yesterday. This is kind of the same intro, but it's definitely relevant in terms of the topic that we're doing today. Most of my background is just focusing on the dogs and cats on the euthanasia list. You'll see I focus a lot on dogs because my background has been, fortunately, in San Antonio. Cats were a population that the municipal city shelter had pledged when we got there to find live outcomes for. Dogs still to this day are a struggle. So I started in San Antonio as a foster and really a volunteer, very naive. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just wanted to help out, so I fostered puppies and large dogs and medium-sized dogs. I really was passionate about it. I wanted to make a difference. 2010, I got a job as the foster coordinator. Again, not realizing kind of the magnitude of what was going on in the city at the time. So I remember thinking, my first job in animal welfare really, or in a shelter setting, and my boss handing me just a flip phone at the time of her foster program. It was just like 8 to 10 contacts, and that was it. So I thought I was going into all this training, and I had this beautiful roadmap of what to do, and really it was just the cell phone and just go run with it. Luckily, she was really open to whatever I wanted to do with the program and kind of run it from there. But really, I spent most of my time, depressing as it sounds, but in the euthanasia building, because I realized at the time they did have a satellite shelter, kind of overflow shelter, but it was way back, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from the municipal shelter. You had to get permission to go back there. It was on a Army base, so they had these kennels way back there. The instructions to get back there were like 20 lines long, and at one point you're literally on a dirt road. It was crazy. They would house maybe 50 dogs there overflow. So I would go there and take pictures of them and try to post their bios because it was a 72-hour hold time they had. And I would run after the morning and run to the euthanasia building at the city shelter and try to catch the trucks coming in from those dogs that weren't getting any exposure, and trying to, again, pull as many as I can out and try to give them at least till maybe the end of the day. So very exhausting. And I know you guys can relate to a lot of this work, but that's just what fueled me every day and got me into this crazy madness. So at the time, I realized after I started working there that the live release rate was only 28%. Their intake still to this day, and was back then, 31,000 dogs and cats, which equates to about 22,000 being euthanized every day or killed, a year. So pretty awful. And then in 2012, Dr. Jefferson was approached by the city, and I'll talk a little bit more about how that panned out. But it was clear that the existing rescue partnerships, the foster base, the adoption, it just wasn't doing anything. I mean, the save rate was 28%. Something had to change. There had to be a better model out there. So San Antonio Pets Alive was created, and Austin Pets Alive at that time was about 4 years old. So it was the first time, and really the largest model, that Pets Alive had been able to duplicate relocate outside of Austin. So I love using San Antonio as an example because it's showing that, there's a lot of people that think, well, Austin, you've got more resources, you've got more fosters, you're a pet-friendly town. We can't do that in our community. San Antonio, with their intake of 31,000, even though it's only an hour and a half south of us, is, I feel, like a pretty different city. It's a much bigger city. It's got some different challenges. Every day on my way to work, dodging dogs on the road that were just stray dogs that people had left. I'd never seen that before, that just left and, can run the streets. So the program was duplicated and was really, really successful. So today the save rate is about 88 to 90% over the last few years. So it can be duplicated and it does work. So San Antonio Pets Alive directly saves about 5,000. It waivers 5,000 to 6,000 dogs and cats a year directly from the municipal shelter, but then indirectly saves an additional about 2,500 through marketing efforts. That's kind of a tough number because we don't always have data on, hey, we saw a dog or a cat from your marketing page and that's what drew us there. But with a little bit of work, we've approximated it's about 2,500. So that equals about over 7,000 dogs that are being marketed every year. So it's a lot. So now, like I had mentioned, I'm the Maddie's Life Saving Academy for American Pets Alive. So I work here in Austin. I teach the systematic canine life saving course. So that's everything from intake to foster to medical to adoption, and a lot of behavior. And then, of course, reducing length of stay. So if you guys are interested, I would love to talk to you about it. And really my passion, I have found it. I mean, I love saving these guys that are just overlooked and people don't have the resources or don't know how to help them. I love helping other people just target these groups. And I promise, again, I'm not going to make this scary or depressing. And this is my ridiculous deaf dog that's a goofball. So when we talk about the euthanasia list or kill list, there's so many words I've seen or terms out there across the country. It's either urgent, I've heard it called the urgent list or the youth list or the EU list, kill list. In Austin, it's called the attention list, even though we don't really have a euthanasia list in Austin anymore. But really what it comes down to is just a list of who's most at risk of not making it out alive, right? It's pretty simple. It's who's at risk of being killed at the city shelter. So when you're approaching this list and when you're looking at it and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, you've got a few questions to ask yourself. So how is this list generated? And I'm actually really amazed at all the different ways that shelters have come up with figuring out who is, if they are killing for time or space or euthanizing to relieve that pressure, how that's being generated. I've seen it all from being computer generated through Chameleon, like once your stray holds up, you're going to be on that list, from a department of people that get together once a month and figure it out, or it's a daily walkthrough, and sadly one person has to do it. I think that's a huge burden to put on one person to make those decisions, but that is really common in our country of generating that list. The other question you have to ask, and this again has a huge variety depending what shelter you're in, is what is the timeline? Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 7 days? Whatever the timeline is, the minute that the shelter puts that timeline on, I would consider that to be a euthanasia list. So it doesn't matter really if it's 30 days or what. The other thing that makes it a little complicated is getting the real list. It's really incredible how many lists that are out there in terms of like, this is our public facing list and this is the one we give the rescues and this is our internal one that we are using. And really the goal is to get the real list. And I know that's hard and the partnership has to be there and the shelter's got to put themselves out there. It's a big deal. And sometimes it can take years to kind of get to that trust point to get the real list, but you're never going to get anywhere until you really figure out who's dying and it's not behind closed doors and it's not a secret process. So we'll go through that as we go on. So, and I love and I hate this slide because I don't want to generalize certain groups of animals. I do believe, in Austin, we always talk about how dogs and cats, they're individuals and that's how we save them. But for the most part, our communities are the same. You might see some illnesses more than others, But for the most part, the dogs and cats coming into our shelters are going to be pretty much the same. And I say tier A through tier C, not being like this one's better than the other, but I just had to put them in groups somehow. So when you look at it, so tier A coming in, I mean, we all are going to see those healthy puppies, like the 2 to 4 monthers, healthy, cute, probably going to fly off your adoption floor. And then the floofies, I call them the healthy small dogs, little poodles and terriers. And then you get purebred adults, which is great if you've got breed-specific rescues that target schnauzers or German shepherds, or whatever the breed is. So you get purebred adults coming into shelters all the time. Then we've got, our minor medical puppies. So sometimes that could be Demodex mange or sarcoptic mange or a touch of ringworm, whatever it is. Dogs of all sizes in tier B. So they could be social with dogs, cats, and kids. And then adult healthy dogs, just of all sizes, of course. And then tier C's can be a little bit more challenging. Neonates, puppies, and kittens. You've got parvo puppies, distemper, all the mange, ringworm, URI, heartworm, blocky-headed dogs, or pit bull type dogs. And then large dogs with behavior issues. We all know they can be a little bit more challenging. Depending on the community and you're in, senior dogs can be kind of tough. Major medical, what do you do with dogs that come in or cats that come in that have orthopedic needs or have been hit by a car? And then really, if you are in, like most of us, an overcrowded situation, any dog or cat coming in for just lack of time or space can fall into tier C because you just don't have enough kennels and you can't handle it. So the trends that I see, across the country, and it's amazing. I've been able to talk to students now from literally all the coasts, all parts of the country. And I do an initial exercise with everyone, and we write down who's not making it out of our shelters alive, from California to Maine to Vermont to Texas. And honestly, the answers every single time are the same. We all have the same challenging population, no matter where we are. We might see more distemper in the South than we do in the North, but we're all kind of struggling with the same thing. So I feel like this trend is going to be pretty similar across the country. So your adopters come in, they're really looking at tier A, right? The line outside the shelter, everyone's fighting over puppies. They might, so say you do an adoption special and then those fly out the door, then they might look at tier B, like maybe I'll look at this cute little non-contagious Demodex puppy, still a puppy, still super cute and adoptable. I'm going to grab that one up. But then it gets complicated, right? The rescues come in, and then this is where the fighting happens. Your rescues are going to want to take these dogs too, and this can get ugly. And usually, you're the one that gets, blamed for this debacle that happens. Rescues are really good, oftentimes, to be able to have capacity to help with tier B, to help with some of these social dogs that are great. They're great with kids and housebroken. These rescues can pull them in and give them more time and adopt them out more time than the shelter can. They're going to look at, adult healthy dogs, and then you've got your breed-specific rescues fighting with your adopters, so it gets them really messy. But the question always remains is who's saving them? Who's looking at this last group? It's amazing. Like some rescues will pull from this group, but the Pets Alive model is really focused on this last tier, and this has made all the difference. So it's just as simple as that. And I apologize for this really corny slide, but it's so true. I love my puns. But the key to life-saving truly is just no duplication of efforts. And that is just the backbone of the Pets Alive model. And I'll show you some of the incredible results that we've seen just by putting this out there. The no-kill, definition and the movement, it is very confusing, I think, for a lot of people. And partly because we all have different sort of definitions, and I think it can get really gray. When you throw out that whole 90%, I think that gets even more confusing because then you see shelters that are at 90% save rate, but are still killing for time and space. So is that no kill? I mean, that's a huge question. So really, we've got to look at, if you're an organization that's at a 98 or 99% save rate, you're doing great. Your rescue is really, really awesome, and you're amazing. That's awesome. I'm not saying not to celebrate that. But if you're down the street and your municipal shelter's at a 28% or 50 or 60, 70% save rate, are you no kill? As a city, can you really go and say, we're no kill? We would argue that no kill, and at Maddie's and then at American Pets Alive, it's a community community effort. That's really how we measure it. It's the success of your community. So I could be sitting at a Humane Society or even Pets Alive at 98, 99%, but the city, that I live in, 15 minutes away, is still at 40%. I would say no, we're not a no-kill city. We're not a safe place to be for a dog or cat coming in. So really, our goal is to make sure that the community is no-kill and there's no duplication of efforts here. We don't want to fight with adopters. We don't want to fight with other rescues. We want to see who's left. So when we talk about getting that real list, it can be really touchy. I've lived through this in San Antonio and the conversations that have gone on with the city shelter. I've seen it both sides, both working in municipal, having rescues approach and trying to help, as well as working as a rescue, trying to get the list from a municipal shelter. I've seen both sides, so I understand and I sympathize on both ends of the spectrum. So the best advice I can give is if you are, say, a rescue organization trying to help, trying to get some transparency from a shelter that might be a little bit weary for sometimes valid reasons, it's important to come up with a really composed plan. So you don't want to come in there firing with emotions and pointing fingers. There's a lot of fear, I think, with bringing in rescue groups because they've been burned so many times before if they've tried to be transparent, or there's just an uncertainty of what is the rescue, what is their intention, what are they trying to find out, are they pulling an open records request and going to blast us on the media. So try to extinguish the shelter's fears and let them know what your plan is going in. Lead with your data. You're going to hear that, obviously you've heard it all weekend, is data and numbers. And if you don't have the numbers of the impact that you can have, point to the cities that are doing it well. You're hearing a lot from Austin, so we've got a lot of data. We would be happy, we're going to share everything we can with you. So use other cities as a model of what works. And then be transparent with your practices. When Austin Pets Alive came in to San Antonio to try to work with the municipal shelter, had to be transparent about what the end goal was, and it was just to save lives. I do remember one meeting where, and I apologize because it can get kind of confusing, I do interchange the words euthanasia and kill. Totally understand the controversy with that. But it stems from a meeting that happened years ago with the municipal shelter when we were trying to get the ability to get this list so we could publish and market the dogs on the list. That's all we wanted to do. They hated the word kill, and they said, we are not going to give you this list if you continue to use this word. So euthanize and euthanasia is just in my vocab, and it's just been ingrained in me. And so that was an important lesson, though, because if we were not going to compromise, we weren't taking away anything by changing our vocab a little, but we would have lost everything if we said, nope, this is our stance. We're never going to get that list. So being able to make that compromise with them, that they were comfortable enough to then publish their list to us, we were able to save thousands of lives from that. And then, of course, like I said before, not coming in guns a-blazing. I mean, we've all been there where we cry at home and we're so upset, but bringing that emotion and that kind of hysteria into a meeting when you're trying to negotiate and work with a shelter, it's not professional, really. You're not going to be able to communicate your thoughts very clearly, and a lot of times you're just going to be dismissed. So coming in with that professional plan is really important. And then from the shelter's perspective, I think it's really hard because, from working in municipal, you're constantly faced with a lot of negativity, and people are a lot of times just nitpicking, and sometimes you are making mistakes and you don't have the tools or the resources in place to fix them right away. And it's hard to sit down in those meetings and feel like your heart's in the right place. You're doing everything you possibly can. You're working, 7 days a week, and still people are saying that you're a killer and you don't care. I get it. It's hard. So I think the importance is just focusing on the good that you're doing, and then just don't be afraid to be transparent with your needs. If you're getting so full that puppies are truly at risk of being killed in your shelter, put it out there. I mean, there's a nice way to say that, I guess, but you don't need to hide those things. People will help if they understand, hey, our conference room is full, we're doubling up kennels, we're nearing capacity or full capacity, please help us. You'll go a long way if you're transparent with your needs, but it is scary to put yourself out there. And then considering a contract or a MOU with a rescue organization, considering those partnerships, trying to make it easy for rescue partners to pull from your shelter. And not every rescue is one that maybe is going to be a good fit, and that's okay. But if you have a really powerful, really good relationship with a rescue that you can maybe work with, consider trying to get some sort of contract or MOU with them. So even if they can take 50 dogs or 100 dogs a year, that's still 100 dogs or cats that you're not having to save. And then laying out expectations. I think this is a big one. We struggle when we have, the 72-hour time, or we've got an intake as high as 31,000. You've got to have quick turnover. You absolutely have to have it. A lot of times rescues and different organizations, they don't understand that urgency. It's not in their world. They don't have the experience with it. So they're like, I'll tag and then I'll pick up next week. It's like, nope, not a boarding facility, not how it works. It gets really messy if you enter into a partnership and you start rescuing and they don't understand that urgency. So laying out the expectations up front. Don't be afraid to put up a pickup deadline and just explain, like, this is so we can save more lives. I'm sorry, I would love to give you 2 weeks to find a foster for this dog. I just can't. This is the flow. This is the pressure that we're under. And not everyone's going to understand, but they certainly won't understand if you're just giving a deadline. You have to lay out why and expectations. Also, a code of conduct, for people that are coming in, being hysterical, bashing you online, making any sort of personal threats to staff, that's completely unacceptable. I mean, we can't control everything that's going to happen on Facebook, but they certainly can't come on campus and treat your staff poorly. So creating a code of conduct for your fosters and your rescue partners. If you're going to be a partnership, it has to be a partnership. And then, of course, making it easy and accessible for rescues and fosters. I think it's easy for us to sort of kind of police and try to find what's wrong with rescue partners, or are they secretly like hoarding dogs everywhere, and we're going to find them in our 55-page application. But balance, a healthy amount of matchmaking, healthy amount of screening, but also with, we don't want this to be super difficult that a rescue isn't going to want to work with us. We need the help. And then question everything. Just because you've been doing it the same way for 60 years doesn't mean it's the best way. It's clearly not working. We're still in a crisis. It's why this conference exists. Dogs and cats are still dying every day. So we're not doing everything perfectly. We're doing things a lot better, but we've got to question everything, even with municipal sort of restrictions and the rules and funding. Still, it doesn't hurt to ask and try to get the ball moving. And just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean it can't be done. And don't ever settle with good enough. I'll show you later some slides of reaching really high save rates, historical high save rates of 70% and 85%, but stopping there is not okay. You got to keep going, and you can be. I mean, Austin still is the biggest no-kill city in the country, but I always say nobody in our organization wants to keep that title. Kind of sad that we still have the title. We want another city to be able to surpass Austin. Be happy to give the torch over. So cities just have to keep pushing. So when we look at a euthanasia list or urgent list or whatever you want to call it, this is pretty typical. This is one that was generated out of Chameleon based on, this would be a computer-generated one, not a person generating it. So based on just the release date, they've done their stray hold. There's no holds, no foster rescue adoption holds placed. So the release date is there, and then they're on this list. Pretty basic information. We've got a photo. Some of the photos are a little bit better than others. You've got your kennel number, ID number, intake and out, release date, and then how they came in, either over the field or over the counter or field. And then just like basic age, and that's always approximate. We don't really have a great idea, their color and a breed. So this is really typical. This was in 2010 when the save rate was so low before San Antonio came in. This was still what it looks like. It hasn't changed at all, and it's very similar to what the Austin one looked like back when they were at about a 50% save rate as well. So this is kind of tough. And it's so important. So if San Antonio or if Austin came into San Antonio and was trying to save these animals, we couldn't create programs without knowing our data. This is not fun by any means, but I think it's absolutely crucial. So if you're just starting out and you're trying to help a rescue, or even if you're a municipal shelter and you're trying to develop programs to save more lives, you can't really put your energy or your programs if you don't understand who's dying. So this little kind of worksheet I think is really effective. And so basically what you want to do is you pull a euthanasia report. You're not, from that simple report, it's probably going to look more like this, right? It's just like a name and ID. That's when you've got to look under that animal ID number and do a little bit of digging. So figure out, try, if they are over 4 months old and they're a large breed dog, try to dig in a little bit more. Are they a blocky-headed dog? Was there a medical reason going on? Was it length of stay? Question everything. Dig in those records. Was it an owner surrender that had notes of being, an escape artist in the home? And try to categorize why animals were dying. To make it easier on yourself, I would recommend doing just 1 week, pull 1 week report in the summer, and then 1 week in the winter. And that's going to give you a really good picture of the year. If you don't have the ability to pull euthanasia reports out, you might have to do it manually. I wish our shelter software was Shelter Love's amazing, but our technology is really outdated overall. So some places just don't have the ability to get this data. So you might just have to do it manually. Again, painful, but I promise it'll save lives. And then just try to categorize parvo, distemper, URI. Are they injured and ill, but they're not contagious, so hit by a car or something? Neonatal, kittens coming in, nursing moms and puppies. Are they small adult dogs? Are they just other puppies that haven't been captured in any category above? So it is kind of eye-opening. Not a lot of people do this exercise, but I think it's so important when you're first starting out to figure out what programs you need. So this is what was happening in San Antonio when we came down to try to create a program to save lives. It turned out parvo neonates was the very first program that was created. We realized that there was absolutely no outlet for them in the city. So that is still what Pets Alive does there. So wouldn't be complete without Will Ferrell. I love this scene in his underwear freaking out. I can't tell you, I'm sure you guys can relate to me, how many times I literally feel in this place like life is out of control and just absolutely freaking out about it. This is a dog total of a chameleon generated report of an actual euthanasia list for the day. Like, who the heck can start a day with 139 dogs, just dogs, not cats, at risk of being euthanized? And this honestly is still the report that I think I just pulled this 2 weeks ago. And so this number is still very daunting and it's still very real, even with a 90% save rate. But I'll go over some of the tips and tricks that we've been able to kind of filter this down a little bit and make it more manageable. But don't be overwhelmed if you see this. This is common. So the goal in Austin was the same as it was in San Antonio. When Austin Pets Alive just started, it was completely foster-based and just in a little streamlined trailer doing a little bit of medical work, and I'm sure Dr. Jefferson has talked more about that, having their fosters setting up in, outside of a truck in a pizza parking lot and just trying to save lives one by one. And it's the same with San Antonio. Two goals, really. And the first goal was just to directly pull. So we're trying to get in that line, that euthanasia line, and trying to stop that process from happening, even if it was just a litter of puppies or one dog or 5 dogs, whatever it was. So directly pull them into our rescue, maybe get them a foster, get them adopted, or straight get them adopted. Or did we have any rescue partners that we could partner with? And then the other goal is, like, when you see this 139, we clearly didn't have capacity to take 139 dogs every single day. But what we could do is, this list isn't very exciting. It's not really easy for a rescue to navigate, and people don't even know how many dogs are up for euthanasia each year or each day. So the second goal was just to market this list so other people could help. We knew we couldn't do it by ourselves, but there's a lot of rescues that could get involved. So the next thing we did was we had to build a network. This happened kind of organically as fosters were signing up to help this new organization, as rescue partners were willing to kind of help that the city didn't have the bandwidth to get in their rescue network. This was number one. So it definitely started small. We just started with we were capturing email addresses and we created a Facebook page. I don't love the title. I think one day we will hopefully change it, SAPA Urgents and Adoptables, but it's stuck and we have close to about 60,000 followers. So at this point, we're kind of scared of changing the title and people losing the page. But really the goal here wasn't to kind of rally and go against the city and try to change euthanasia practices. It was solely just to market these dogs and give them exposure. Because just like I was, seeing the trucks, come from the back and right into euthanasia and nobody seeing them. San Antonio was actually Pets Alive was actually putting a model in place for marketing to get these faces out there because the timeline was really incredibly short. So there's different ways. You don't have to do Facebook, but I would recommend it. It's a great way. Most people are on it, and it's a great way to network. You can just focus on email lists. I would caution you not to e-blast your partners. They might think it's spam and not read all the emails coming in. In Austin, for our fosters, we moved to using, not going away from email and using a website called Trello. You can have it's sort of like Pinterest boards, and so you can break up your different fostering needs based on this site. So that might be something if you're not doing a large scale, but even if you are doing large scale, that you could look into Trello, and it is free, and that would be able to a good way to network with your rescues. So Facebook was a big help. And then to give you kind of an idea, and this is very confusing, so I tried to illustrate it a little bit. When Pets Alive first started out in San Antonio, it was just a tiny office, really, really small, maybe room for 2 desks, and that was it. So we had pop-up kennels, we had fosters picking up. It was definitely grassroots and felt like the streamlined trailer experience in Austin. The city, even though they were euthanizing so many animals, they did have a vacant building that wasn't being used. It was supposed to be like a puppy kennel, but it wasn't being used. And so with a little bit of work and negotiation, we were able to start using this building that was empty at no charge. The idea was that we were just going to work like crazy and try to increase their save rate. So really on the left-hand side, this is the city kennels. We're all on the same campus. And the dogs are coming in and they're doing their stray hold. And then you've got really the euthanasia list is in there. Our goal with our building was to bring the dogs. So once that they have exhausted the euthanasia or they exhausted their stray hold and they're on the urgent list, our goal is letting every other foster, rescue, adopter pull who they could. Whoever was left over, we're going to try to buy them more time. We're doing marketing in this as well. So we're actually physically going to take them out of the city kennels, put them in our building, and then try to, from there, get them out to adoption, to foster, to our own rescue partners. Some are mutual rescue partners with the city and San Antonio. This was our model. It still is the model down there as well. And marketing like crazy throughout this entire process, right? Like getting more information, getting more pictures out there. It turns out that this getting this life-saving time, just even extending it by 5 hours or 6 hours in a day can save thousands of lives. So it's really amazing. Doesn't have to be a fancy shelter. Not everyone has a relationship with a city like this. I get it. But it can be done with fosters. And then just remembering APA's early base was just foster base, just pulling into foster. But again, it's just trying to stop and be that roadblock before they get euthanized. Just another way that we set up, there's a lot of communication that has to happen. We're literally talking with like a 24-hour timeline here. So the dogs start at the city shelter, and this is we're on day 4 of their stray hold. So they're already on the euthanasia list. So we had to build a team. We didn't have a lot of money, so we had to run really lean, but we had to build a team that could work at the city campus and try to help get these dogs out alive. Again, they're coming at us in masses and very quickly, and then it turns over the next day, the same volume. So we created a SAPA on-site manager. So basically, I like to think of them as kind of the lifeguard. They're literally on campus. They are going to be the liaison or the point person with the city. And so the idea is that now Pets Alive is interjecting themselves in every euthanasia decision that the city is making by saying, hey, run it by us before you euthanize anyone. So really, we had to have a point person that was there 7 days a week. We did have 2 people eventually take on that role, so someone wasn't working every day in such an exhausting position, but they're literally back there just as a safety net. Run every dog by me or cat by me before they're going to EBI, as we call it, or euthanasia. Because, the minute you start marketing animals, you've got to have a quick response time. So we had to have a team. At one point, it was just volunteers in the beginning, and then it turned into staff. But we had to have a team to be able to field these incoming inquiries, everything that's coming in from like, hey, that looks like my dog, or that reminds me of a dog from my childhood, or hi, I'm a 501c3 rescue. I'd love to partner with you. They've got to be the ones that are quick and able to respond and try to get them out alive, because we're under an intense timeline here. So they're going to be the middle person to help this manager as they're managing their team on site. The placement team is that middleman. And so they're really at their computer literally all day. We decided to have them work off site just for lack of space, honestly, was the main reason. And also so they weren't pulled away to other duties, because they were getting hundreds of emails, and they still do every single day. Then we also have an on-site adoption team. So their main goal is just interfacing with the people that are coming on site, helping with foster rescue pickup, and they're really the boots on the ground, meeting the dogs, getting more information on the dogs. And so these 3 teams coming together, it's a lot of communication. We've got one team, the placement team, that's not even on site. So the best tool that we found to be able to communicate so much information in such a fast amount of time, we do a little bit of text, but it was getting really exhausting, and with Androids and iPhones, it was wild. So we went to Slack. I would recommend this. It's a great, it is a free app if you kind of delete your storage once in a while. And this is a great way. It kind of works like Facebook Messenger in the sense that you can use it on your computer as well as your phone. So, and you can like share videos and pictures and things. So it's really helpful. And then we love a Google spreadsheet. So lots of Google spreadsheets. And then really just understanding the system is important. Dogs come in. This is a typical stray hold for a dog that doesn't have a microchip, or a cat. So intake day, even if they come in at 6 or 7 p.m., that doesn't count as their first day. The next day does, and that's when the time really starts clicking away. So day 1, day 2. In all this time, Pets Alive is literally saying, fosters, rescues, adopters, I don't even want to see these dogs. Take your pick. We're not ever, again, duplicating efforts. So we don't want to rescue a dog or use a precious kennel spot for a dog that already has another live outcome. I can't stress that enough, how key that is in terms of saving the most lives. Day 3 is when the marketing really starts. So now we've got the list for the next day. And that's when we're going to get our pictures and our bios and try to get all the information. And then, of course, I don't want to be really depressing, but Youth Day. But this is also really known as the release day. They can go at that point to adoption or foster or leave campus at that point. So we created a system. So we did an observation. I call it observation. Some people could call it an eval. I don't like to call it an evaluation, because we can't really say we're evaluating dogs. When you have over 130 dogs on a list, you really can't get really great behavior information. You're maybe spending a minute in front of their kennel to get through all of them in the 2 or 3 hours that you have. This is the job that's completed by the on-site manager. They're going to take that daily list, and they're literally walking through each kennel, and they're just doing observations. You can tell a good amount about how a dog is kind of behaving, and you can get a little bit of information at least to write some sort of marketing plea for them. They might be huddling in the back of their kennel, and then an absolute social butterfly at home, we all know that their behaviors change, but at least we can get some information to be able to put that out there and try to get people interested and just let them know that, hey, we're here and we need to rescue or foster. So knowing that the deadline for euthanasia is the next day at 9:30, these observations are happening probably at 12 or 1 o'clock the day before. And we're literally just trying to soak up as much information as possible. If there's an owner surrender paperwork or anything that we can find, if a volunteer wrote a dog walking note, we're going to take all that information and put it in the plea. And so really this is what this is what I think this model set the life-saving apart. And this was the process of working with the city and saying, hey, again, we want to be part of every euthanasia decision, or at least see who's being euthanized, just be aware. So we developed a partnership, and it's called the walkthrough process. So this is something the city was already doing. They were walking each kennel every morning, and out of that list was figuring out who was going to be euthanized immediately. So we wanted, as Pets Alive, to be part of that process and have the ability to pull as many as we can, or at least alert the rescue community, hey, these 10 or these 20 or these 30 are at immediate risk this morning, because out of 130 something dogs, it's hard to narrow that down. Luckily, the city was very open to this partnership. We never interjected. So as we walked, it's a kind of a quiet process. So the city makes their decision, okay, I have a foster for this one, or I'm going to take this one to my office. And then when they make the decision of I'm going to euthanize this one, or this one's going to go to the euthanasia building, that's when SAPA would interject. So we're not ever, again, at the very last minute, we're not going to duplicate. If they want to put the dog in their office, they're going to put the dog in their office, and then that's one more open spot for us, not duplicating their efforts. So we're literally making just reactions to the city's decisions. And then, like I talked about before, that little vacant building that San Antonio Pets Alive was using with the 25, it has about 25 kennels inside. That was going to be our kind of fast turnover area where we can bring them in, give them that more time, and then hopefully send them out. That's the goal. So we call it a transition kennel, because they're technically still the city's dogs. We're just taking care of them. And really the goal is just find a live outcome for as many as possible, and then just set that clock, just extend that clock a little bit longer, and just try to provide more marketing and more exposure for those dogs. So for the dogs that the city does pass on and they say, hey, these are going to go to euthanasia, those are the ones that we can then put in our building and then can really do a lot more marketing and just amp up the efforts there. In Austin, like I had said, this is there's not really a euthanasia list anymore. The AAC, Austin Animal Center, does an excellent job at really throwing a lot of resources and not saying that a dog for time or space is ever going to be euthanized in their city. So I think that's really amazing. For dogs that have any sort of medical considerations, or the city feels that they've exhausted maybe all efforts, behavior, and medical, they can't provide any more support. It's just a Google sheet. So this is another way, just like San Antonio, where we're physically walking the kennels together. In Austin, the timeline is a lot less strenuous, and it's more of a Google sheet. So this is just a screenshot of a conversation that happens between Austin Pets Alive and Austin Animal Center. So they have flagged some dogs that have medical considerations or behavior that they feel they've exhausted, their resources for, and then APA will communicate back and forth. So again, it's just great open communication. This is really what you want to strive for, and it takes a lot of work to get there, but this is how you can save lives. It's just being open with each other and working together. So this is just a simple Google sheet, nothing fancy. So from there, we've taken, the notes of the dogs, whether it be, when we did the observation process, you don't have a ton of time, so you're going to try to get some sort of weight, average, just to give people a size, because photos can be deceiving, and then things about their personality. The on-site manager will then send that information to the placement team, and they're really jazzing it up to be a forward-facing marketing effort for them for Facebook. So their placement's doing a lot of that computer work. So this is June, a dog that we saved. Super sweet. So this is just an example. Her, if you were just to see kind of that boring brown dog listing, it wouldn't be as exciting unless you saw like a fun bio and a little bit more about her personality. So again, the goal is just to turn a boring list into something more interactive, something more exciting, something that people can share. They're getting a better idea and a better picture of the dogs on this list. And you can see there's a huge variety. And then, so with the Facebook page, just to go a little bit more onto that, we found out the hard way, and I would definitely advise you not to do this, is we were keeping dogs' photos up of sadly the dogs that weren't making it out alive, and we found that the community just gravitated like crazy to them, and they were completely ignoring the ones that still needed the help, right? So not in an effort to be hiding something or not to be transparent, but we do delete the dogs out of the album that don't make it, just solely because we want our rescuers to focus on the ones that need the help. So we just created one album. We changed the date on it as we go through. So, come Tuesday, it'll be January 16th album, and then that has all your urgent dogs. And then it really helps rescues and fosters and adopters and people that are networking to know what happens to these dogs. So we do have a safe album to show kind of that final outcome of where they go. So I think that really helps. People follow that a lot, and it has a great following. So it kind of keeps us all motivated and morale high. The goal is just make it easy for the community to find a way to save dogs from the youth list. We update those albums daily. The placement team does. And then the placement team has a Google spreadsheet where they're recording any info, any interest coming in. This is so important because if somebody says, hey, I think I might foster on Monday, come Wednesday, if you forgot about that interest, you might lose that live outcome if you didn't follow up with them. So any bit of interest is recorded in a Google spreadsheet, even if it's not a confirmed someone picking up. Then we try to celebrate successes by posting freedom ride photos and happy adoption pictures, and something that the team is working really hard to get even better at. The job is pretty grueling, but knowing how important those successes are. The pledges are something that I don't know where it came from, but it's popular in some of these pages where rescuers and networkers will put pledges down. There is some pressure, San Antonio, why aren't you, honoring pledges, or why aren't you organizing them? It just was just the sheer work of it. Our goal was just to make sure that the public had a consistent place 365 days a year that they could go and see an album of dogs that needed help, making sure it was up to date as possible. Managing the pledges was a little bit difficult, but something that we're looking at a volunteer to hopefully help with. So final product, this is what just an average plea is going to look like. A really eye-catching, cute photo. I love the little teeth in there. And then just a bio. It doesn't have a lot of really specific information about the dog because we just honestly don't know that much about her, but we know that she's super sweet, a little bit shy, could help, with some cuddles and treats, but you can see she's already, real friendly with a person with her there. And then we're really clear with our deadlines. So making sure that people know exactly when we need pickup, when we need a confirmation, and they have a centralized email to go to, because we don't want them, again, you could imagine the work that happens if you're having to respond to every Facebook comment and post about, oh, I can pick up. No. Please just email us so we can make it official and we actually have some documentation and we have your contact information, not just your Facebook profile. For marketing, we're a firm believer marketing is not adoption counseling. Even if the dog was a little bit growly or a little bit defensive in the kennel, we're not going to, paint this picture that we don't know about the dog. We're going to try to put, just like the first date analogy, all the positive first and not try to share every single detail. Pleas are often generalized at first just because we don't know a bunch about them. Breed, we made a conscious decision about a year ago to take breed off, even though the city had 5 main breeds coming in, like German Shepherds, everything's a Chihuahua Lab or, Pitty Mix, and everyone kind of has their own decision of what they think the breed is anyway. So we figured that wasn't important. Weight and age seemed to be a little bit more important to people, so we try to give kind of an approximation on there. And then just again, clear instructions. We don't have any other secret agenda here. It's just to get the dogs out and figure out, if we have any other outcomes for them. And then here is just an example, just another one. Again, just a really kind of positive plea. No breed is really listed. We use some fun dress-up things here. And then again, the deadline is on there, as well as the email where they would contact if they have any interest. We use pick collage a lot. Collages. This is literally a dog. Every single picture is in a kennel. Otis just got adopted. It's pretty exciting. He was with us for a little while. But it's not anything exciting. These are just pictures with iPhones. But collages can make a difference. It shows different angles of the dog. Maybe one photo is more captivating than the others. So every album, there's about, over 100 dogs in this album. It's a lot of work, a lot of copy and pasting and posting photos every day. But honestly, this has made such a difference. So with photos, again, we don't have a fancy photographer and we really don't have the luxury of equipment or time. So pretty much all of our photos are done just with an iPhone. It's amazing what iPhones can do right now. Just a few tips. I'm not a photographer myself, but things that I've kind of learned, probably taking pictures of thousands and thousands of dogs over the years. Clear and in focus is really, really important. I hate blurry pictures. It doesn't do the dog any justice. Shade is awesome especially for your black dogs. And really like a dog squinting is not ideal. We try to get on their level. It's amazing how like their size and their heads get skewed when you're right over them. Not their best angle. They prefer to be on the dog's level. And then I always rip out those squeakers out of fluffy toys, so you don't have the whole toy, but you can use your squeaker to get them to look at you because the eyes are just so important. Getting that eye contact. It is amazing how many people have come in showing their phones saying, "Where's this dog? I saw him online." And the photo was the thing that brought them in. It truly, it can save lives. It's amazing, the power of a photo. We don't spend any money on this. People just find cute things at the dollar store. If people donate fun things, this was literally like at Hobby Lobby, like a little like fall display that we just ripped off and made it into a cute little collar. So as we walk the dogs from the city shelter, from the euthanasia list to our building, that's our opportunity to try to get, again, it's not perfect. We hate a leash intro, but try to get some idea how they are on the leash. Have they walked by the dogs? Are they wiggling? Are they jumping up on you, trying to get kisses? Are they scared? Do they need to be carried? We're trying to soak up all this information as we can. And then, of course, try to get a cute photo while they're out of their kennel. And then we love this app. It's called Fonto. There's a lot of apps like this out there. I think it's really easy to use. It's a good way to be able to put text and an animal ID if that's what you want to use on a photo. And that makes it real nice for you to be able to stay organized, and you can share the photos and save them to your phone. We love to capture the smiles of dogs, try to get them out of their shell. If dogs came in together or they're going into playgroup, just showing off dogs with their friends. It's amazing how this picture will get a foster to pick them up because they see, wow, this dog is pretty social. Again, we can't guarantee temperament. Every dog's going to be different with other dogs, but at least we know these guys are pretty easygoing. Pablo and Valentine came in together. It pulls on people's heartstrings. We also like to put people in the photos and being careful not to make the person as the focal point, but showing that personal connection. Like, look, he's on my lap. He's giving me kisses. Again, it just gets people excited and gets them wanting to share. This is a little bit about this massive beast of a spreadsheet that the placement team manages just to stay organized with hundreds of emails coming in. You can imagine all the interest that exists out there for these dogs and trying to track it all. When you're marketing over 100 dogs, it can get overwhelming. This is just a screenshot of their spreadsheet. They have a new tab for every month, and they're just capturing that basic information, their location, because if their location's moving kennel, from the city kennel to Sappas kennels, got to keep track of where they are. Their ID number, because a lot of duplicative names, and then again tracking interest, and then getting any sort of medical information. We're not necessarily going to be putting the right eyelid appears swollen on a marketing plea, but it is good for us to know internally. And then of course trying to figure out the outcome, what happened to the dog. So the placement team, they have a really intimidating job. It's a lot of work. Hundreds and hundreds of emails come in, and they've got that fast timeline, and so they've got to be able to prioritize. They use a lot of templates. I always say templates are your best friend, so they're not rewriting the same email over and over. Where are you located? How do I become a rescue partner? I'm interested in fostering. They've built so many templates to be able to just fire those emails out as quick as possible, so they're getting people a fast response time, and we're not waiting 8, 10, 24 hours to reply to someone. The goal is within the hour. Sometimes it's slower than that, but that is the goal. And then very organized, again, using that spreadsheet. And then it's really important the placement person is not, even though they're a employee of SAPA, if an inquiry comes in about, hey, I'm interested in adopting a dog that I saw on your foster team, they're literally, like if that email accidentally comes to them, they're just going to siphon that off. Their goal is really just to market these guys on the euthanasia list. So they've got to be really quick about it and they're kind of like the central contact. As we went on, we found out, so it's not just enough to put photos and bios and marketing, at least in San Antonio, it wasn't for us. So we built a strategy knowing that there are rescues that'll help, there's fosters that'll help, there's adopters that will help if they have more information. So we did create, like as we're doing this like 2-minute walk from the city campus or city shelter to our little building, we're using that time to get more information about the dog. A heartworm test, is a big deal for a lot of rescues. If we have the ability to do a heartworm test, we're gonna do it. We're gonna try to get more information about their skin. Again, we're using a Google spreadsheet for this because we have our off-site placement team that's not physically on site. So we found that this was a really fast way for the adoption counselors and the people that are boots on the ground to be able to communicate with the placement team. So the inquiry comes in, hey, what's going on with the skin? The rescue needs to know they've got a foster. The question will go up and then the on-site team will answer, and it's just a copy and paste. So it's a lot of back and forth of information. We used to use text and Slack on that, but honestly, the Google spreadsheet seems to work the best, and you can prioritize your needs for that. So we created that system of secondary assessment, so everybody coming into the building or that we're giving more time to on the euthanasia list is getting another look over, a little bit more thorough. We're going to try to see how they do in playgroup, try to get some sort of at least some baseline information to give people, so it's not just a generic marketing profile. And so just to kind of walk it back a little, when you're looking at the list, it can be really intimidating. And it's hard, one of the main questions I get all the time is like, how does your staff or how do you make decisions on who you give more time to? In the beginning, it definitely wasn't a perfect situation, but we had to have some sort of model. In a perfect world, we would be able to give more time for everybody, right? But when the save rate was 28% and, loads of dogs were coming in, we did have a hierarchy and priorities of life saving. So the goal in the beginning was to make sure that all healthy puppies under a year, we could guarantee that they had a safe outcome in our city. So that was number one, making sure all healthy puppies. And this is honestly the same as it was in Austin. The same model was duplicated in San Antonio. All medical puppies, so making sure that puppies had an outcome even if they had parvo, creating a parvo ward. All dogs under 25 pounds, so smaller dogs, they're usually easier to find fosters for, adopters for. We have more space for them, more capacity. And then we move into like our medium and large size dogs. If they're people, dog social, that is our number one. We're, creating programs like transport and expanding our foster base to give these guys more of a chance. We're saving dogs like major medical, but again, this becomes like our main priority. And it's hard to say, but in Austin, yes, I can definitely confidently say dogs with major medical, orthopedic needs and things are being saved. All of them are being saved. San Antonio, again, 90%. Technically, you could say that's no kill, but not all of these dogs are making it out alive currently. Work in progress for sure. Medium and large dogs with major behavior challenges. Austin, at 98, 99% save rate, they are safe in the city. But again, still our priority. So really what we're seeing, by taking that first chunk, that first tier out and saying this population, no matter what, will stay safe in our city, bumped from a 28% to a 70% save rate just by taking out that group and ensuring that they're safe. From there, this is not perfect math, but in most communities, what we're seeing is if you start guaranteeing that this population's safe, you're gonna look at closer to an 80 to a 90% save rate. Austin being at about 98 to 99%, this is primarily what APA, Austin Pets Alive, is working with, major medical cases from the city and major behavior challenges with the dogs coming in. So again, not a perfect math. I mean, every community might be a little bit different, but from what we've seen, this is pretty much the goal. So again, it's not a perfect equation, and it's really hard to make decisions, but this allowed our manager and our staff to be able to kind of have some sort of hierarchy and some sort of method to the madness when you're presented with hundreds of dogs that are at risk that day. How do we prioritize? Who do we keep safe? And so you can see this model, it's been incredibly effective. This is, and I think Dr. Jefferson showed this graph in one of her presentations, but you can see the city save rate without APA making sure that this population is safe. You can see over the years how it grew, you know, from 45% all the way to 94, 91%. Without APA, you know, in 2015, the save rate, if you just easily calculate, would only be 73%. So this model works. In San Antonio, you know, when the save rate was only 28%, I think this story of how Pets Alive started is so incredibly powerful. The city manager had tasked, she created at the time, an innovation team, and literally tasked them with scour the earth for a model that works. And nobody really stepped up except for Dr. J. And so Ellen stepped up, and that's how Pets Alive was created. So this graph here, the purple category is 2011, their save rate. You can see in October, it's 28%, all the way from 35%. The red line was the target line. Like going into 2012, what is our save rate? What is our goal? What are we working at? It was only 38%. That's all they wanted to do. SAPA was formed in this year, and you can see already in that first month of just making sure this population that we can come in and save, already a jump up in 1 month of 17% of a save rate. Same with rescue pulls. Same graph, purple 2011, the red is their target line, the green is actually what happened. Really, really powerful. This model works. Here's some of the results just to put that graph in perspective. So they had a 76% increase from 2011 of pets going to rescue, so 12,657. They exceeded the 38% live release goal, clearly. And then 28% save rate in the first year to 61%. That's incredible, and it's the highest in the 60-year history just by implementing this model. So last slide, you hear this a lot. You guys hear it all the time. I could never do your job, and I never know what to say to that, you know, because, you know, I think our job is an honor. It's incredibly taxing. But it's so rewarding. You know, we get to see the best of the best. So when you look at the euthanasia list, when you're struggling, you know, in your own communities and trying to figure out how to save more lives, it's so important to stay positive and focus on the end goal. I promise you, if you work really hard, things will improve. I know it's hard to feel that way. I remember Tux is one of the dogs that came in, and like I said, you know, where the trucks would come in, and there would be 30 dogs coming in. I only maybe had 5 kennels. I had to pick 5 dogs out of 30 to try to give more time and try to save. It was excruciating, so difficult. But if I kept focusing on the 25 that I couldn't save that day, I don't think I would still be here. You have to focus on the 5 you could save, and I know everyone says that, focus on the ones you could save, but you really, really have to. So Tux, I always save his photo as a reminder. He was one of those 5, as a reminder of he's one that I was able to save. So incredible. And then celebrate successes. It's just so simple. Create an email address like Happy Tales ad, or, you know, get people to send in their success stories. So not only you, but your staff and the people that are on the front lines making these decisions and doing this hard work are seeing what their work is contributing to. And then remember, iPhones, Androids, our cameras, you don't have to be a marketing expert. Don't wait for things to be perfect. Just get out there, start somewhere. Even if the list is massive and you're marketing or taking photos of 5 dogs, you made a difference on those 5 dogs' lives. So just remember that. And then feel free to keep in touch. Here's my email. Again, I teach the course, the Canine Life-Saving course. I love students. I love to be able to share some of these practices and show you some of APA's great programs and help you implement those tips at your shelters. So then that's it.